The Puritans, that group that we little kids dress up as on Thanksgiving. Yes, the Puritans, they had a strict religious society where anybody suspicious of anything out of line that didn't fit in their specific concept of how people were expected to act as God-fearing members were subjugated to all kinds of interesting checkups. The year was 1692. It was one of the coldest winters on record, and people were running low on food, patience, and tired of winter in general. In February of that year, two cousins, 9-year-old Betty Paris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams, started behaving strangely. A physician found nothing physically wrong, but diagnosed the girls as under an evil hand. Puritans believed that the devil had wreaked havoc in the world through human agents or witches who blighted nature and conjured fiendish apparitions and tormented children. As news swept through the village, the symptoms appeared to spread. Accounts of 12 more so-called afflicted girls, their bodies having fits and complaining of prickling skin. 4 of the girls soon accused 3 local women of tormenting them. All 3 of the accused were considered outsiders in some way, and on February 29th, the authorities arrested Sarah Good, a poor pregnant mother of a young daughter, Sarah Osborne, who had been absent from church and happened to be suing one of her accusers, and Tituba, an enslaved woman in Betty Paris's home, known only by her first name. Tituba denied harming the girls at first, but then, under promises that she could go free if she confessed to practicing witchcraft on the devil's orders, and charged Good and Osborne with having forced her to do it. This was the beginning of the Salem witch trials that by their end in May of 1693, a year and a bit later, resulted in over 100 people having been imprisoned, 14 women, 6 men had been executed. And by this time, accusations were spreading beyond Salem to neighboring communities. Even the most powerful figures were targets. When his own wife was accused, the governor of Massachusetts colony suspended the trials. Some have suspected the girls were suffering from hallucinations caused by a fungus or a condition that caused swelling of the brain. Ultimately, the reason is unknown. What we do know is that adults accepted wild accusations by children as hard evidence as rumors spread like wildfire. Today, the Salem witch trials remain a cautionary tale of the dangers of group or mob mentality, scapegoating, and the power of fear to manipulate human perception, intentionally or not. But the Salem witch trials were neither the first nor the last of endless examples of dangers of this phenomenon that can plague communities, societies, and nations. Just think of McCarthyism. Just think of Nazism. Just think of anything else. Riots that spread on an instant. Today, our Torah portion contained the horrific story of the golden calf, a story of the Israelites taking part in one of the worst sins in Judaism. But how did such an event transpire? The Israelites had just been through the most amazing series of events. They witnessed the plagues in Egypt, liberation with Pharaoh letting them go, the splitting of the Red Sea, the crossing the sea, the revelation of Mount Sinai, food falling from heavens. And the Torah tells us, when the people saw, Vayar ha'am, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, make for us a God who shall go before us. For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what happened to him." And Aaron said, "You take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people, v'kol ha'am, took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. There's a difference of two letters, one word. The First time, the Torah told us, when the people saw. The second time, when they took off their rings, it said, V'kol ha'am, when all the people took off their rings. How did the Torah go from saying the people to saying all the people? Because the first time when the complaint came that Moses was delayed coming down and they wanted a new leader, it wasn't everybody. No, it was not. It was a small, specific group, a vocal group, a group of people who were rebel rousers, a group of people who continually posted online over and over again, until everybody got the message, and all of a sudden it started to spread, and people said, oh my God, Moses is not coming back. And when it came time to take off their rings, the Torah tells us all the people took off their rings and gave them to Aaron. But in the end, how many Jews were there that came out of Egypt? The Torah tells us. How many men were there, which is what they counted in the census? 600,000. How many people died as a result of the golden calf incident? 3,000. Somebody do the math for me. What percent is that? What? 0.5%. Yes, 3,000 people is a lot of people, but you know what? It was 0.5%. And in the end, it wasn't actually 0.5%. It was much less than that. It was less than 0.25%, because the 600,000 don't take into account the men and women, the women and the children. How could that be? Because the rest of Israel, even though they got caught up in the Mishigas and took off their rings, they weren't real believers in this golden calf ridiculousness. How do we know that? Because if Moses had come down and told them to grind up that golden calf, and they actually believed that that calf was God, would they have ground it up? No way! That's God! No. They got caught up in the moment. And once Moses smacked them across the face, they woke up and they realized they got caught up. Mob mentality is started by a seed that one person plants. It could be that person casually mentioned something accidentally, just an idea, but more likely than not, it's one person who is purposely manipulating the situation. A person with nefarious, completely evil intentions, and a person who understands that if you can manipulate the mob, you have power. And then the mob comes, and the witch hunt, and the blame game, and the riots where nobody's able to hear anything besides their own echo chambers. This week, we saw the detention, the arrest of a former Columbia graduate student named Mahmoud Khalil, a leader of the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian, however you want to label it, movement. I am not a lawyer. I do not know the first thing about immigration law, constitutional rights of green card holders. I don't know that. Nothing. There are lawyers. I can see at least 3. Are there more than 3? Maybe. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. What I do know is there has been a massive case of mob thinking as the sides have lined up since he was arrested. Those who support what the government did are yelling from every building that we should throw him on the dirtiest, most violent street in Gaza and see how he does. And there are those who say, how dare you arrest him without cause? How dare you attempt to deport him without going through the legal system? He has rights. Far be it from me to weigh in on either of these sides from the bema. Yes, I have opinions, but from up here, they're worth as much as the crumbs from my Hamantaschen that I have to clean before Pesach. Not much. There's something. I gotta clean them. What I can't address is the mob mentality. Mob mentality has led people to threaten the life of the judge who ruled that Mahmoud Khalil deserves at least his day in court before being deported. His life and the life of his wife, who is the head of a major Jewish day school in New York City, have been severely threatened and they're now under police protection. And on the other side, there are riots in the streets of New York, outside Columbia University and other places, in protest of his arrest. How dare you arrest him? And I gotta say, this is not the Jewish way, because Judaism teaches us to take our time in responding, to seek out intentionality. And what is my proof? My proof comes from the book of Esther, very simply put this way. In the book of Esther, when Haman brought his little request to the king Ahasuerus, he said, there's a certain people scattered, dispersed among all the other nations. These people don't do your will, they don't obey your laws. It's not in your interest to tolerate them. If it please your majesty, let an edict be drawn. And I'll even pay for the edict and everything. 10,000 talents of silver. And the king, who's portrayed as a complete buffoon in the entire book, says to Haman, the money and the people are yours to do as you see fit. I don't need to think about it, whatever you think. Accordingly, written instructions were dispatched by couriers to all the king's provinces to massacre and exterminate all the Jews, young and old, children and women, on a single day, on the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. Got it? Got it. Skipping way ahead in the book, after Haman's plot is revealed, the king is helping Esther and Mordecai set up a system so the Jews could defend themselves. And the king, mirroring what he had said to Haman earlier, issues the following edict. The king has permitted the Jews of every city to assemble and fight for their lives. If any people or province attacks them, they may destroy, massacre, and exterminate its armed force together with women and children and plunder their possessions. Sound familiar? Sounds familiar. Same line, almost word for word. Yet, what does the Megillah tell us about how the Jews went about defending themselves? The Jews in Shushan mustered on the 14th day of Adar and slew 300 men in Shuham, but they did not lay hands on the spoil. 2 lines later, the rest of the Jews in all the king's provinces likewise mustered and fought for their lives. They disposed of their enemies, killing 75,000 of their foes. 75,000 is a lot, but King Ahasuerus, he ruled over 127 provinces. That's a lot of provinces. 75,000? Not so much in comparison, right? And then it says, but they did not lay hands on the spoil. Yes, they killed a lot of people. But the Megillah goes out of its way twice to tell us, A, they only attacked those who threatened them. And B, they did it so that they didn't take the possessions. They didn't turn into a mob seeking revenge. They said, we must defend ourselves. Yes, we must defend ourselves. But let us not slide down that hill that happens on a battlefield when people get going. No, they said intentionality behind our actions so that we fulfill our initial intent that is thought out, but we don't go beyond. We don't get swept up in the fervor of the madness of war. Intentionality in response allows us to walk through this world with our heads held high, knowing we're doing the right thing because it's thought out. It's not in response to the mob. It's not in response to somebody posting one crazy idea on Facebook or wherever it is, Twitter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We respond from a place of intentionality, because to be a Jew is to take our time to look around the world, to make a decision, and then act appropriately. Shabbat Shalom.